The red lights flashed across every screen in the control center. Administrator Hay pressed her thin fingers against the console, her large eyes fixed on the numbers that kept dropping. Shield strength, 23%. Time remaining, 9 hours, maybe less. Send the message again, she said to her communications officer. Her voice was steady, but her antennae trembled. The people did not know fear like this, not in 3,000 years. Outside the reinforced windows of Seven's command center, the sky burned. The ships looked like dark spots against the flames, moving in patterns that made her sick to watch. They were alive, those ships, grown, not built, and they were hungry. The colony had 50,000 people, families, children in the learning centers, engineers in the deep mines, all of them looking to her for answers she did not have. The coalition fleet, Hay asked, though she already knew. Destroyed, administrator. The last ship went silent 14 minutes ago. The officer's voice cracked. We are alone. Hay looked at the tactical display. They had come from dark space 3 days ago. The first anyone knew of them was when the outer station stopped responding. Then the attacks began, fast, brutal. The coalition had sent 12 ships, good ships with good crews. They lasted 6 hours. They were not like the peaceful races of the coalition. They did not talk. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on. Open all channels, Hay said quietly. Her officer turned, confusion on his face. Administrator, the coalition frequency is. All channels, including the red channel. The room went silent. Everyone knew what the red channel was. It was the frequency that no one was supposed to use, the frequency that reached into the territory of the humans. But administrator, the regulations. Look at the sky. Hay's voice rose for the first time. She pointed at the burning atmosphere, at the dark shapes that circled closer with each passing minute. The regulations mean nothing to the dead. The officer nodded slowly and entered the commands. The console beeped. Every frequency in known space was now open. Hay took a breath and began to speak. This is Administrator Hay of Mining Colony 7. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Coalition fleet has been destroyed. Colony shields failing. 50,000 civilians will die in less than 9 hours. We need immediate military assistance. She paused. We need anyone who can fight. She closed the channel and sat down. Her legs would not hold her anymore. Will they come? Someone asked. The humans. Hay did not know. No one really knew much about humans. They had joined the Galactic Coalition only 50 years ago. They came from a world called Earth, a planet that the science team said should not support intelligent life. Too much gravity, violent weather, dangerous animals. The humans themselves were strange, tall and thick-boned. They moved like predators. Their ships were ugly and built like weapons. The other races kept them at a distance, uncomfortable with these newcomers who came from such a harsh place. But they were strong. Everyone knew that. Strong in ways that made the peaceful coalition nervous. 3 hours passed. The shields dropped to 18%. The ships pressed closer. Hay authorized the evacuation of the outer districts. There was nowhere to evacuate to, but it made people feel like something was being done. Then the communications console lit up with an incoming signal. Long range, very long range. Administrator, we have a response. It's from human space. Hay's heart jumped. She moved to the console faster than she thought possible. The voice that came through was deep and rough. It spoke coalition standard with an accent that bent the words in strange ways. 7, this is Captain of the Terran vessel Dauntless. We received your distress call. What is your situation? Hay grabbed the microphone. Captain, we have 50,000 civilians. The swarm has destroyed our defensive fleet. Our shields will fail in less than 6 hours. We need immediate evacuation or, she stopped, or soldiers. We need soldiers. There was a pause. In the background, Hay could hear voices speaking in the human language, sharp, quick words. Administrator Hay, this is Admiral Jin Ho of the 3rd Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are mobilizing now. How many hostile ships? Over 200 that we can count. They are bioorganic vessels. They work together like a single mind. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. We will be there in 12 hours. Admiral, our shields will fail in 6. Then hold for 6 hours, Administrator. We will cover the rest of the distance at combat speed. Dauntless out. The channel closed. Hay stared at the console. 12 hours. The humans would arrive 6 hours after the shields failed. 6 hours after they broke through and began killing everyone in the colony. They are not coming in time, her officer said softly. Hay turned to look at her people, young and old, scientists who had never held a weapon, children who had never seen violence. This was supposed to be a mining colony, a quiet place to dig useful metals from dead rocks and send them back to the Coalition worlds. Send a message to all districts, she said. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to barricade the intersections. Tell them to gather anything that can be used as a weapon. She looked at the burning sky. And tell them to hold, just hold. They were not warriors. Their bodies were too fragile, their instincts too gentle. But they would try, because they were coming. And something in Hay's mind whispered that when the humans arrived, they would learn what it meant to attack someone under the protection of Earth. She just hoped enough of her people would survive to see it. The alarm rang through Terra Station like a hammer on steel. Captain ran down the corridor toward the docking bay, his boots heavy on the metal floor. Around him, other crew members were doing the same. No one asked questions. The alarm meant one thing: emergency deployment. Captain on deck, someone shouted as entered the Dauntless, his ship, his home for the past 8 years. Lieutenant met him at the bridge entrance. She was shorter than but moved with the same quick efficiency. Her dark eyes were already scanning a data pad. Admiral Jin has mobilized the entire 3rd Fleet, she said. 20 warships, full combat. Where are we going? Asked, sliding into his command chair. 7. Mining colony on the edge of Coalition space, under attack by something called the Swarm. Pulled up the tactical data on his screen. He read quickly. His face went hard. 200 hostile ships, 1 mining colony, no defensive fleet. He looked up. The Coalition really stepped in it this time. Moved closer and lowered her voice. Captain, this could be a setup. The Coalition has never asked for our military help before. They keep us at arm's length, call us like it's a dirty word. Now suddenly they need us. Understood her concern. Humans had been members of the Galactic Coalition for 50 years, but it had not been easy. The other races looked at humans like they were bombs waiting to explode. Too aggressive, too violent, too much from a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. I read the message myself, said. That administrator was terrified, real terror, not fake. With respect, sir, how can you tell? They are insects. They don't show emotion like we do. Exactly, they don't show emotion, but she was begging, stood up. Get us ready for departure, full weapons check. I want the point defense systems at 100%. Saluted and left to carry out the orders. Stayed on the bridge watching as the other ships of the 3rd Fleet came online. Their names appeared on his screen one by one. Valiant, Iron Mountain, Thunder, Resolve, good ships, strong ships. In the Fleet Command Center, Admiral Jin Ho stood before a holographic display of the 7 system. He was an old man by military standards, 62 years old, but his back was straight and his voice was clear. Listen up, he said to the assembled captains on the video screens. I know what you're thinking. The Coalition never asked for our help before. Maybe this is politics. Maybe this is a trap. He paused. I don't care. There are 50,000 civilians about to die. We are going to stop that from happening. On the assault carrier Iron Mountain, Colonel Nasung watched the Admiral's speech with her arms crossed. She commanded 800 Marines, the best drop troops humanity had. She was born on New Sol, a high-gravity colony world where everything was heavier and harder. She had never known easy living. "Ma'am, the load master wants to know the equipment priority," her sergeant said. "Everything," Na replied. "Heavy weapons, light weapons, ammunition, medical supplies. If we can fit it in a drop pod, we take it." The sergeant nodded and hurried away. Na looked at the tactical map. 200 enemy ships, unknown capabilities, unknown tactics. The only thing they knew for sure was that they had destroyed an entire coalition defensive fleet in hours. Na smiled. It was not a kind smile. Finally, she said to herself, a real fight. Across the fleet, the same preparations were happening. Engineers checked the reactors. Gunners loaded the mass drivers with tungsten rods the size of telephone poles. Medical teams stocked their bays with trauma supplies. Everyone knew this was going to be bad. In the engine room of the Dauntless, Engineer Wu checked the FTL drive readings for the third time. Everything looked good, but good was not enough. Not for this. "Bypass the safety limiters on the acceleration," he told his team. "We need every bit of speed we can get." "Chief, those limiters are there for a reason. Without them, the crew will experience 8 during the burn." "I know, do it anyway." The young engineer looked shocked. 8 will injure people, maybe kill someone if they are not strapped in right. Wu looked at him with tired eyes. "And if we arrive 10 minutes late, 50,000 people will definitely die. Make the choice, son." The young man swallowed and nodded. He began entering the bypass codes. 6 hours after the distress call, the Third Fleet was ready. 20 warships hanging in space around Terra Station. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Jin opened a channel to all ships. "The coalition has kept us at a distance for 50 years, he said. "They are afraid of us, afraid of what we are, what we can do. Maybe they are right to be afraid. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back. We learned to be hard." He paused. "But we also learned to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what we do today, not for politics, not for glory. We do this because it is right." The channel closed. The fleet oriented towards 7. The navigation computers calculated the jump. "All ships report ready," said the captain. Looked at the image of the distant colony on his screen. Somewhere out there, an administrator named Hay was watching the clock count down, watching her shields fail, watching the enemy close in. "Send a message to 7, said. "Tell them we are coming. Tell them to hold on." "Yes, sir." The message flashed across space at light speed. It would take hours to arrive, but it was a promise from the of Earth. "Jump in 3, 2, 1, mark." Space twisted. The ships vanished in flashes of blue light. The Third Terran Expeditionary Fleet was moving at a speed that would make most coalition species black out from the acceleration. The humans felt the pressure, felt the weight, but they endured. They always endured. 12 hours to 7. 12 hours until the galaxy learned what happened when you threatened people under human protection. In her command center, Administrator Hay received the message. Her hands shook as she read it. "We are coming, hold on." She closed her eyes and prayed to gods her people no longer believed in. The shields were at 12%. They were circling closer. Her people were armed with mining tools and fear. But the humans were coming. And that had to be enough. The shields of 7 failed at exactly the moment the computers predicted. Administrator Hay watched the numbers drop to 0 and felt her heart stop. Around the colony, the protective barrier that had held back the for hours simply disappeared. "All personnel to inner shelters," she ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the console so hard her knuckles turned white. "Seal the blast doors. This is not a drill." The ships moved forward like a dark tide. 200 bioorganic vessels, each one grown instead of built, each one part of a single terrible mind. They did not celebrate their victory. They simply began to descend toward the colony to feed. Then space tore open. The human fleet dropped out of FTL in a way that should have been impossible. They came in hot, already moving at combat speed, shields up and weapons armed. Most species needed hours to recover from a jump. The humans arrived ready to fight. "Contact," the sensor officer shouted on the dauntless bridge. 200+ bioships. They are moving toward the colony. Captain did not hesitate. "All weapons free fire. Target the ships closest to the colony, now." The Dauntless and her sister ships opened fire. The mass drivers hurled tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed. Each rod carried enough kinetic energy to crack a moon. The first salvo hit 3 ships and turned them into clouds of organic debris. On 7, Hay watched her sensors with wide eyes. The human ships were not sleek and beautiful like coalition vessels. They were blocky and brutal, covered in armor and weapon systems. They looked like what they were, instruments of war. "They actually came," someone whispered. The swarm noticed the new arrivals. 80 bioships peeled away from the colony and moved toward the human fleet. The hive mind calculated that these new ships would be easy prey, like all the others. The hive mind was wrong. "Incoming hostiles," reported. 80 ships, they are moving fast." "Point defense, stand by," ordered. "Let them get close." The fighters closed the distance, launching organic projectiles and acid sprays. The attacks would have melted through coalition hulls. They splashed uselessly against human shields. "Point defense, engage." The space around the Dauntless lit up with tracer fire. Automated gun systems tracked and destroyed every incoming target. The fighters flew into a wall of metal and died by the dozens. "They are not breaking off," said Surprised. "They are a hive mind," replied. "They do not feel fear," he smiled coldly. "They should." On the Iron Mountain, Colonel Nuss stood in the drop bay with her Marines. They were all wearing powered armor, massive suits that made them look like walking tanks. Each Marine carried enough weapons to fight a small war alone. "Listen up," Nuss shouted over the noise of the ship's guns firing. "We are going down hot. The colony is under attack. Ground forces are already inside the perimeter. Our job is to establish a defensive line and hold it until the fleet clears the space above us." "What if the fleet does not clear it, ma'am?" someone asked. Nuss looked at the young Marine. "Then we hold anyway, because that is what Marines do." The drop pods launched. 500 armored soldiers fell towards 7 in metal shells, entering the atmosphere at speeds that turned the air to plasma around them. Coalition species would have died from the acceleration. Humans just gritted their teeth and endured. Nuss's pod hit the ground near the colony's outer wall. The impact crater was 3 meters deep. The pod door blew off and Nuss stepped out into hell. The ground forces were everywhere, creatures the size of cars, moving in perfect coordination. They had broken through the outer defenses and were killing everything they found. Civilians ran in panic, their fragile bodies no match for claws and acid. "Weapons free," Nuss ordered. The Marines opened fire. Their rifles used ammunition and fired at a rate that made them sound like angry buzz saws. Warriors exploded under the impacts, their organic armor useless against human weapons. Nuss moved forward, her powered armor crushing bodies under her feet. She saw a group of children trapped against a wall, 3 warriors closing in on them. She raised her rifle and fired. The warriors died before they could take another step. "Get to the shelters," she ordered the children. They stared at her with huge eyes, terrified of this massive armored figure. "Go, now." They ran. Nuss turned back to the battle. More were coming, always more. In space, the battle was getting worse. The had pulled back all their ships from the colony and focused everything on the human fleet. 200 bioships against 20 human warships. Admiral Jin watched the tactical display from his flagship. The numbers did not look good. "The Valiant has lost shields," his tactical officer reported. "Heavy damage to sections 4 through 7. "Tell them to fall back," Jin ordered. "Dauntless and Thunder move up to cover." The human ships moved with precision, covering each other, creating overlapping fields of fire. They fought with numbers and fury. It was a battle between quality and quantity. A ship rammed into the frigate Resolve. The bioship exploded on impact, but the damage was done. The Resolve began to tumble, atmosphere venting from a massive hole in her side. "Resolve is down. Get recovery ships to her position," Jin ordered, his jaw tight. "Pull the crew out." On the Dauntless fought his own battle. 3 ships were focusing fire on his vessel. The shields were holding, but not forever. "Angle us toward the lead ship," ordered. "Prepare to fire the main gun." The Dauntless turned, exposing her broadside but bringing her largest weapon to bear. The main mass driver was designed to crack asteroids, had never used it on a living target before. Fire! The tungsten rod hit the ship dead center. The bio-vessel did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level by the impact. "Target destroyed," reported. On the surface, Nuh and her Marines had established a defensive perimeter around the main civilian shelters. They had been fighting for 2 hours straight. Ammunition was getting low. Her armor showed damage in a dozen places, but the line held. "Colonel, we have movement on the eastern approach," her sergeant reported. "Big movement. Looks like a wave attack." Nuh looked at the sensor readings. At least 1,000 warriors, all moving together toward their position. There was no way to stop that many. She opened a channel to all Marines. "Fix bayonets, prepare for close combat." The Marines attached their combat blades to their rifles. They were long knives, nearly half a meter of steel, designed for the desperate moments when bullets were not enough. "Hold this line," Nuh shouted. "Make them pay for every meter." The wave hit them like a tsunami. The Marines fired until their weapons ran dry, then they fought with blades and fists and the crushing weight of their armor. It was brutal. It was desperate. It was what humans did best. Above them in space, the fleet fought on. They were learning that did not break easily, did not run, did not surrender. But the battle was far from over. The space around 7 had become a graveyard. Debris from destroyed ships drifted in silent clouds. Some were bio-vessels, torn apart by human weapons. Others were human ships, brave crews who had fought until their vessels could fight no more. Captain wiped blood from his forehead. A console had exploded during the last attack, sending shrapnel across the bridge. 3 of his crew were dead. 2 more were badly wounded. The Dauntless herself was barely holding together. "Shield status?" he asked. "Down to 18%, replied. Her voice was hoarse from shouting orders. "We have lost the port weapons array. Main drive is at 60% capacity. The number 2 reactor is offline." Looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had started with 20 ships. The Valiant was gone, destroyed with all hands. The Resolve was crippled and drifting. The Thunder had lost main power and was fighting on backup systems. They were winning, but the cost was terrible. "Sir, new contacts," the sensor officer shouted. Multiple FTL signatures emerging from dark space. Felt his stomach drop. "How many?" 300. 300 more ships, sir. It is their entire attack fleet." On the flagship, Admiral Jin Ho stared at the sensor data and felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. 500 ships total. His fleet was already damaged and low on ammunition. The mathematics were simple and brutal. He opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Jin. I will not lie to you. The enemy has brought overwhelming force. We are outnumbered. We are damaged. A retreat would be tactically sound." He paused, looking at the image of 7 on his screen. 50,000 civilians, families, children. We are not retreating. We came here to save lives. That mission has not changed. All ships reform the line. We hold this ground. On the surface of 7, Colonel Nuff fought in a nightmare. Her Marines had been fighting for 8 hours straight. Their powered armor was covered in blood and scored with acid burns. They had run out of ammunition an hour ago and were fighting with blades and bare hands. Nug grabbed a warrior and threw it against a wall with enough force to crack the concrete. Another leaped at her from the side. She caught it in midair and crushed its head with her armored fist. There was no time to think. Only react. Only survive. "Colonel, the eastern wall is about to collapse," her sergeant shouted over the radio. Na looked toward the wall. It was buckling under the weight of bodies, thousands of them pressing forward. If it fell, the creatures would flood into the civilian shelters. Everything they had fought for would be lost. "All units fall back to the inner perimeter," Na ordered. "We make our stand at the shelter entrance." The Marines retreated in good order, fighting every step. They formed a wall of armored bodies at the narrow entrance to the underground shelters. Behind them, 50,000 waited in the darkness and prayed. In the command center, Administrator Hay watched everything fall apart. The human ships were being overwhelmed in space. The Marines on the ground were being surrounded. Her people were going to die. She had failed them. "Administrator, we are receiving a transmission from the human ship Dauntless," her communications officer said. Hay looked up surprised. "Put it through." Captain's face appeared on the screen. He looked terrible. Blood on his face, uniform torn, but his eyes were still sharp. "Administrator Hay, we need your help." Hay almost laughed. What could her people possibly do? They were miners and scientists, not warriors. "What do you need, Captain?" "Our engineer has an idea. The ships are bioorganic. They are all connected to a central hive mind. If we can disrupt that connection, the ships will lose coordination." "How can we help with that?" "Your mining equipment. It uses subsonic pulses to break apart rock formations. We need to know the exact frequencies you use. Our engineer thinks he can modify them to disrupt the neural network." Hay turned to her technical staff. "Send them everything. All the mining frequency data. Do it now." On the Dauntless, Engineer Wu received the data and began working. His hands flew over the controls, his mind racing through calculations. He had been working on this theory for hours, running simulations when he should have been repairing damaged systems. "Captain, I think I have it," Wu said over the intercom. "They use a bioelectric frequency to coordinate their ships. If we broadcast on this specific range, it should disrupt their connection." Should asked. "Sir, I am an engineer, not a miracle worker. Should is the best I can give you." Made the decision in 2 seconds. "Do it. Broadcast on all human ships. Maximum power." Wu entered the final commands. Every human ship in the fleet became a giant radio transmitter, flooding space with the disruptive frequency. The effect was immediate. The ships suddenly began to move erratically. Some stopped completely. Others started attacking each other. The hive mind that had coordinated them so perfectly was shattered, leaving each ship to operate on basic instincts alone. "It is working," shouted on the Dauntless bridge. "All ships press the attack," Admiral Jin ordered. "Target the confused vessels. Do not give them time to adapt." The human fleet surged forward, damaged and battered but not broken. They fired every weapon they had left, pouring destruction into the disorganized swarm. On the ground, the effect was just as dramatic. The warriors suddenly lost their perfect coordination. They began to wander aimlessly or attack each other. Some simply collapsed. Colonel Na watched the change with exhausted eyes. "All Marines advance, clear them out." The armored soldiers moved forward, finishing off the confused. It was not a battle anymore. It was cleanup. In her command center, Administrator Hay watched the sensor displays as the fleet began to crumble. Human ships hunted down the scattered biovessels one by one. Some tried to flee into dark space. The humans followed and destroyed them anyway. The battle lasted another 4 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. When the last ship was destroyed, a strange silence fell over Seven, the kind of silence that comes after something terrible has ended. Captain sat in his command chair and closed his eyes. The Dauntless had survived, but just barely. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His beautiful ship was a wreck. "Captain, we are receiving a message from the colony," said softly. Opened his eyes, put it through. Administrator Hay's face appeared on the screen. She was crying. They did not cry often, but today had earned those tears. "Captain, Colonel Na, Admiral Jin, all of you," her voice shook. "You saved us. You lost so much to save people you did not even know. I do not have words to thank you." Managed a tired smile. "You asked for help, Administrator. We came. That is what we do." The transmission ended. Looked around his damaged bridge at his surviving crew. "Good work, everyone. Let's start getting this ship back together." The hard part was over. Now came the harder part. Living with what they had lost to achieve it. 3 days after the battle, Administrator Hay walked through what remained of her colony. The damage was terrible. Entire districts were destroyed. The outer wall was rubble. Fires still burned in some sections. But her people were alive. 47,000 of them had survived. She found Colonel Na in what used to be the Eastern District. The Marine was helping to clear debris, her powered armor doing the work of 10 people. She moved carefully, listening for survivors trapped in the wreckage. "Colonel," Hay called out. Na turned, her helmet retracting to show her face. She looked exhausted. The battle might be over, but the work was not. "Administrator, how can I help you?" Hay looked up at the tall human woman. Even without the armor, Na was twice her size. The barely reached the human's chest. "I wanted to ask you something," Hay said quietly. "Why did you come? Your people barely know us. The Coalition has kept humanity at arm's length for 50 years. We call you like it is an insult, but you came anyway and you died for us. Why?" Na was quiet for a moment. She looked around at the destroyed colony, at the families searching through the rubble for their belongings. "Because you asked for help," Na said simply. "That is enough. But it cost you so much. 3 ships destroyed, 4,000 of your people dead." 4,137, Na corrected. Her voice was heavy. "I know every name. I will remember every name." She looked at Hay. "But if we had not come, 50,000 would have died. The mathematics are simple." "Not all species think that way." Na smiled sadly. "Maybe that is what makes us. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned that survival means protecting each other, even strangers, especially strangers." Hay felt tears on her face again. "The galaxy will never forget what you did here." "Good," Na said. "Maybe next time they will not wait so long to call us." On the Dauntless, Captain stood on the observation deck and looked at the fleet, or what was left of it. 17 ships remained. Some were barely holding together. The repair crews worked around the clock, but it would take months to restore the fleet to fighting condition. Lieutenant joined him at the window. "The Galactic Coalition Council has requested a meeting with Admiral Jin." "What do they want?" "Unknown. But there are a lot of political people very nervous right now. We just demonstrated military capability that far exceeds what they thought we had." Nodded. "They are afraid we will use it against them." "Will we?" "No, but they do not know that yet." On the flagship, Admiral Jin Ho prepared for his meeting with the Coalition Council. He wore his formal uniform, the one with all the medals and decorations. He wanted them to see exactly what they were dealing with. The holographic conference activated. 15 species appeared on the screen, representatives of the major coalition powers. Some looked grateful, others looked afraid, most looked confused. Fleet Commander spoke first. He was a species known for careful thinking and detailed planning. Admiral Jin, on behalf of the Coalition, we thank you for your assistance at 7. Your actions saved many lives. We did what was necessary, Jin replied. Yes, about that, shifted uncomfortably. Your military capabilities appear to exceed our previous estimates by a considerable margin. Jin said nothing, he simply waited. Another representative spoke up. The coalition was founded on principles of peace. We have not fought a major war in 3,000 years. The appearance of the swarm was unexpected, but your response— the representative paused. Your species seems very comfortable with violence. We come from a violent world, Jin said. We learned to fight because we had to, but we also learned to protect. The two go together. Some of us are concerned about having such a powerful military force within coalition space, another representative said. What guarantees can you give that human weapons will not be turned against coalition members? Jin felt his anger rise but kept his voice calm. 4,000 of my people died to save a colony that is not ours. They died protecting people who have kept us at a distance for 50 years. They died because it was the right thing to do. What more guarantee do you need? The representatives shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Administrator Hay appeared on another screen. May I speak? Nodded, of course, Administrator. Hay looked at each representative in turn. Before the attack, I thought I understood the galaxy. I thought the coalition was strong. I thought we were safe. I was wrong. She paused. The humans showed me what real strength looks like. It is not about having weapons or powerful ships. It is about being willing to use those things to protect others, even when it costs you everything. She looked at Jin. The formally request a military alliance with humanity. We want human ships to protect our colonies. We want human marines to train our people. We want to learn from the how to survive in a dangerous galaxy. Administrator, that is a significant step, said carefully. Yes, and it is necessary. They are gone, but there will be other threats. I want humans standing beside us when they come. The meeting continued for another hour. By the end, 6 more colonies had requested human defensive pacts. The political situation was changing faster than anyone had predicted. 2 weeks later, Captain stood on the bridge of the repaired Dauntless. They were leaving 7, heading back to human space. But it would not be for long. New orders were already coming in. Patrol routes, defense assignments, training missions. We are going to be busy, said, reading the assignments. Good, replied. We joined the coalition to be part of something bigger. Now we finally are. On the surface, Na watched the human ships depart. Her marines were staying behind for another month, helping to rebuild and train local defense forces. It was not the job they trained for, but it was important work. A group of young approached her. They were barely adults, their exoskeletons still soft. Colonel Na, one of them said nervously, we want to learn to be strong like humans, to protect our families like you protected us. Na looked at the young people. They would never be as physically strong as humans. Their bodies were not built for it, but strength came in many forms. Then I will teach you, she said. But understand this. Being strong is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how much you can endure, how much you are willing to sacrifice for others. That is the lesson my world taught me. She smiled, and I think you already understand that lesson better than you know. Far away on Earth, the news of the Battle of 7 spread across human space. 4,000 dead, honored, remembered, not forgotten. But 50,000 saved, a colony preserved, and the first real step toward humanity finding its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as outsiders, but as protectors, as guardians, as who chose to use their strength for others. The galaxy had changed, and it would never see humanity the same way again. In the darkness between stars, other threats watched and waited. They were gone, but the universe was full of dangers. But now, those dangers would have to face the. And they did not run, did not surrender, did not abandon those who called for help. The emergency, SOS, had summoned the fleet. And the fleet had answered,